I guess to start, I would like to ask each of you to please introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about your background, your time in Holy Cross, your professional journey, and your work now. So whoever wants to start first.
Okay, I'll take the lead. Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for your time tonight and for inviting me. It's really exciting to be here. My name is Amy. I am class of 2008. I was a psychology and visual arts double major and an athlete at Holy Cross. And when I left Holy Cross, I took the trajectory of getting my master's in fine arts at UPenn in Philly, and with the intention to teach because I loved my teachers so much. And no, and I was a practicing artist as well. And throughout my career, I have gone from academia to being a practicing artist and then to interior design locally, which led me to starting my own business as a rendering artist and graphic design professional. So it's been a winding road, but it does make sense in terms of the overlap of positions and the relationships that I've made. And I could not be more grateful for where I am.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Maybe Leslie, maybe you could talk a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I was just a couple of years before Amy. So I graduated in 2006. Uh, Art major. Christy was my thesis advisor. Leslie, I also took some drawing classes with Leslie. Art major, studio art, focused on oil painting, and life drawing. And my minor was architectural studies, which back then I understand it's changed, but it was under, I kind of created that based on other courses I had been taking. After college, I got a job, kind of begged, borrowed, and made my way into an architecture firm that took pity on me and hired me. So I worked there for a couple of years in Chicago, and after that, I got into grad school for architecture, and I went to Cornell, where I got my master's in architecture. Um, from there, I actually started working in retail as an architect for Anthropologie and Urban Outfitters in Philly for 5 years. Then I moved back into residential architecture with a move back to Chicago. Worked another 4 years there, and kind of along the way, I always knew I wanted to do my own thing and start my own practice. And in 2000 end of 2019, I started Bristow Mather, and we're a full service, custom, high end, all the words, residential architecture firm. We do new construction, renovations, additions, all the things. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
Ah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And maybe now we can turn to Sarah, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey to where you are right now.
Hi everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Sarah Rowe. I graduated in 1998. I think I'm the oldest panelist. I was an English major at Holy Cross with a minor in visual arts, and I primarily focused on sculpture and studied with Michael Beatty. I think he recently retired. I think I saw. And I also took Todd Lewis's Intro to Buddhism class, which led me 2 years after graduation to move to Japan. Kind of was really just interested in the culture, interested in Buddhism. I participated in the JET program, which is a teaching English as a second language program in Japan. And I happened to be living in a small town in Nagano, and had the great fortune to study privately with a potter for 2 years, which was really fantastic. I credit him with, he gave me such a gift. And then after that, I moved back to the United States, wanted to continue my ceramic practice, so needed to be close to a gas kiln. So I started working as the ceramic studio technician at Central Connecticut State University, and then met my second mentor. His name is Vicente Garcia, and worked for him for about 5 years, and studied to be an art teacher, and then moved to New York City in 2006 and started teaching art at a Catholic school. And I think that that really helped. My Holy Cross education kind of got me in the door here because I wasn't certified in New York yet. And then decided to pursue my MFA at Lehman College, which is part of the City University of New York system. And after that, started to pursue some opportunities here in the New York City area. Like with my friends from Lehman, we formed a collective first, which we sought out different exhibition opportunities, and then formed a project space in the South Bronx called Empty Set. We opened in March of 2020. The timing was very auspicious. The day of the first opening, things were starting to shut down. And we kept that open for about 2.5 years. And it was really great. So I'm happy to talk about that more. And done some fellowships here in New York City, and currently working as an art teacher in Harrison, New York.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you. So I think the next question I'm going to ask is if you could discuss a recent project that you're especially proud of, something that you really enjoyed and you were really proud of. So maybe this time we'll start with Leslie just to mix things up.
Oh, sorry. Could you say that one more time?
Could you discuss a recent project that you are especially proud of?
Oh gosh. A recent project that I'm particularly proud of. It's probably gosh. Okay. This is very personal, but I had the opportunity to renovate an apartment for my parents. I think when you're an architect, or I try not to take everything, all projects too personal. You don't want to feel like you're working on someone's home. You don't want to start acting like it's your home, right? It's always your clients. But when you get the opportunity to do something for like a family member, especially a family member that needs really specific help. So, for example, my mom is paralyzed on the left side of her body, and so I got the opportunity to use architecture and design in a really direct and immediate way, using little interventions and little design details that really made her day-to-day life a lot easier. That is not something I get to do when I work on much more fancy or expensive projects. I've actually never had that requirement from a project in terms of needing physical kind of accommodations. But to be able to give something like that to your parents is really special. So that's probably my proudest. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting to hear. Maybe Amy, maybe you could speak to this question, something that you're proud of that you've done recently.
Leslie, I love that story. I mean, we have a lot of day to day that probably overlaps, so I can relate. I would say that my, well, the behind the scenes answer is probably starting my business is the most proud project that I've worked on. I launched in 2020, COVID. So Sarah, I understand you there. And it took me a long time to get to the point of starting my own business. And my father is an entrepreneur, and it's in the blood, right? The family says that I should have done it many moons ago. But so that's like the quick answer. But I would say work-wise, I have the opportunity to work with designers on show house events where they're not necessarily designing for a client or the homeowner, but rather it's much like an art exhibition. And the designs are really quick, right? They have to come up with it quick. They have to be creative. They have to really like do some showstopper design decisions and use, very high end finishes. And I love working on the renderings for those projects because they are different from my day to day process. A lot of them have more hand drawn elements. They're quicker, they're more kind of fluid of a drawing. So I love working with them, and it's kind of a fire drill too. And I live for a good fire drill when it comes to projects. So, quick turnaround. I think I have a show house coming up that's local, and I have about 6 drawings on deck for that, amidst the client work too. And just as a head, I mean, I do about one or two drawings a day, so it's a lot to pile on. But yeah, so show house events and just being here with a business.
Wow, thank you so much. That's really interesting to hear. It's really cool to hear about starting businesses and all of this work that both of you are doing that kind of overlaps. And Sarah, I would love to hear about, your thoughts on the same question, something you're proud of that you've recently done.
Yeah, so I think probably a fun project. I mean, it's not super recent, but fairly recent. Was with the collective I was part of, Infinite Archive, and we put together a show that was in an old card catalog that had 30 drawers. So we invited 30 artists to like respond to a work in the New York Public Library's collection. It could be any work, like books, prints, any really magazines, anything. And then we, had each person create a drawer, and then we displayed it actually at my local library in Harlem. And then after it was in the children's section, and it was kind of fun to see the children respond to the drawers opening and closing the drawers. But then we're kind of, with that collective, we were always kind of just seeking out opportunities, and a little bit of like shameless self-promotion, where we would just kind of say like, oh, well, maybe we could put it in a library in every borough. And we weren't sure that was going to work, but actually, as we approached different libraries, it did. So we shopped it around the whole city, spending weekends kind of moving it from Manhattan to Staten Island, and just the sense of community, meeting up with like 29 other artists, and really, having it exhibited like throughout the city. That was a really fun project.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really interesting. I love the self-promotion. That's actually what we want to hear about here. So I guess I'll move on to my next question, which is, you've talked a little bit about what your days look like in your work, but what does your day-to-day look like? What is the everyday kind of experience working in the jobs that you're working right now? And maybe this time we'll start with Amy.
Okay. Well, I have 3 kids, so we're gonna go the whole day. I have 3 kids under this roof, and we wake up, we get them to school. Coffee is essential. That's first. And then I work down here. I work from home. Everything I do is remote. I draw probably 5 to 8 hours a day straight. Right now, I have a full March and April, so it's looking like 6 to 8 hours a day of drawing. And I spend a lot of time on my calendar because people are constantly sending a rendering request or a project request, and the designers have really firm presentation dates with their clients, and it's essential, like I have to meet them. So yeah, it's a lot of communicating with the clients on email and moving things around in my calendar and meeting deadlines and producing. And I actually love that stuff. So I used to be the studio supervisor at Holy Cross for a little while, and I carried a clipboard around, and I love a clipboard. I love a to-do list. So that's my day. It's producing, it's churning out drawings, it's scheduling new ones. When I send them, sometimes they want to make a change, change a light fixture, change this, that. And so, yeah, it's fitting in the edits. It's wild. It's great. And then I try to end my day when school ends, if I can, maybe an hour after. So yeah. And then if I have to come back to it in the evening, I'll come back to it in the evening. But I try to be really present as a mom, as a partner, and clean the household, do all the things. So it's a mix of life. It's real life. I don't think I've ever been in a formal office setting, and I don't think I could see myself going back to that. Um, yeah, I love it here. So that's my day.
Thank you. That's really valuable also hearing about the balancing between family life and personal life and workload, especially when you are not working in an office where you can just, go to and separate yourself entirely. It's really interesting. Sarah, I would love to hear from you, what your day-to-day looks like.
Hi. I also am a mom. I have a 16-year-old daughter. We leave for school around the same time. And so being an art teacher, it's an early morning. I teach ceramics, so 75 kids a day with ceramics. All kinds of adventures with that. On Friday, we're going to on a field trip to Vicente Garcia's house to do different types of firings, and we've got like over 100 pieces that we're bringing with us. I also teach IB art, so the students are exploring like a topic of their own choice. So that is always really interesting because they pick all kinds of topics, and I end up learning about lots of new artists, and that's always interesting. And I always try to kind of fit. I started a new job like 4 years ago, so that was both great and challenging all at the same time. I had worked in the city for 15 years previous to that. But I do try to work in like what I call pockets of time. So if I can fit in like a little bit of my own work in between, say, the time I'm like leaving my class, like with the workday ends and I'm gonna drive home in an hour, I might try to like fit a little bit of my own work in. My studio is in the South Bronx, so that's actually on the way home. So sometimes I'll stop there. And yeah, evenings usually is like walk with the dog in Central Park with my husband, and yeah, and then dealing with teenage stuff like internship applications and summer job opportunities, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. That is really interesting to hear, including the walks the dog. Um, yeah, so I was wondering Leslie, whether you could speak to the same question now, what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, so
Your
some
job.
similar themes here. I have a little 1-year-old baby, so up until recently, this wasn't my routine, but it's quickly becomes your routine. So I'm up early with our baby and usually taking him to his little school. So that's my day or how I get the day started. And then much like Amy, it really depends on our project schedule. So what I would say, and I kind of knew this, is when you start your own architecture firm, and even as you're working in architecture firms, you learn very quickly that the design, you design how the let's see, how do I put this? You design the project. You spend, maybe it feels like, just as much time designing how you're going to attack the project as you do the actual project. That may not be correct. It may just feel like it because I too will spend countless hours every day, constantly. You're just constantly working on your calendar, and I would say setting expectations with you, your client, and if you have a business partner. So in my case, I have a business partner. I started Bristow Mather, but then I have an old colleague that joined me a couple of years later. And so we usually start the mornings with kind of like a morning call. We're both remote, so I'm in Atlanta, he's in Brooklyn, and then we hop on flights as needed for projects because our projects tend to be kind of across the country, which is fun. But that usually a group call in the morning, we talk about what the day looks ahead like. And I would say if it's a deadline week, we're kind of checking in and confirming who's doing what, and we're cranking on drawings and deliverables for whatever the deadline is. If it's not a deadline week, a lot of what I've been, and it seems to be increasing, is marketing. And I say that loosely. Marketing also is like networking, and I hate the word networking because people say it a lot, but it's really I'm working on a different way to talk about networking. 'Cause it's really just like fostering relationships you already have, or finding relationships, new relationships that you find interesting, and not simply to get a project, although that is always, I'm not gonna lie, kind of in the back of my head, if a project came out of it, that would be great. But really just trying to like root yourself in the community, because at the end of the day, what I do is our projects do come from relationships and they come from referrals. So for example, I'm trying to get more involved in our neighborhood, and I'm on the zoning board for our little neighborhood here in Atlanta. And I'm making relationships with as many people that make sense to me as possible, both because I'm curious about them, but also because I'm just trying to build that network. And I'm spending a lot of time talking about this because it takes an incredible amount of time. It's very easy to say, oh, networking, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And it's surprisingly often more challenging than the actual project, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about how much time you spend on marketing your work and, advertising, and how much you have to spend still cranking out the drawings and doing all of that. So thinking of skills and different kind of skills that you're using in your work, all of you, I was wondering whether I could ask what one or two skills that you've developed from your time at Holy Cross that you use in your work today, and how did you develop those skills after graduating from Holy Cross? So maybe this time we'll start with Sarah.
So probably the most important skill I think is writing. My current high school students never want to hear that, but because I was English major, art minor, when I put together a exhibition proposal, or I'm writing my artist statement, which I haven't revised in a while, but the writing is really probably 25% of the application, and then the artwork might be 75%. So I think the writing has been really important to, some of my applications and just applying for things. And then also as in my work as a teacher. Did you just one skill? You asked for one or two, was it? Just one's good, right?
Sorry. One or two, whatever. If there's something else that you'd like to share with us that you learned
Okay.
from Holy Cross, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I think one thing that my teachers at Holy Cross, like Todd and Michael, as well as others, Father Rule, he passed away, but he was another one. They sort of taught me that the line between being a teacher and mentor and student is very like fluid, and that teaching and learning doesn't just have to happen in the classroom. And that definitely happened when I studied with the teacher in Japan, and also with my teacher Vicente in Connecticut. So I try to bring that philosophy into my own teaching practice, that it could, it can extend beyond the classroom, and that it's not just learning doesn't just happen in the 40-minute period. So I just feel that they've been very generous with their time. So I try to be, generous with my own students. So I think I just feel really grateful for my teachers at Holy Cross and the other teachers after I left too. And it's not really a skill, but I guess it's more a life philosophy. I was a FIPper. I think that program doesn't exist anymore, but I was speaking about the question that guided our first year program, and it was, how then shall we live? And I think that question always has stayed with me and influenced the way I, approach learning, especially.
Thank you. Yeah, no, those are great skills. Definitely, you're teaching philosophy being influenced by a time of Holy Cross. It's really interesting to hear. I just wanted to say quickly that our fourth panelist, Demetrius Wilson, is here. So if you could just introduce yourself quickly and let us know a little bit about your background, your time in Holy Cross, your professional journey and work now, that would be amazing. Just because we kind of missed you at the beginning.
Sure. Sorry about that. I'm gonna try to make it as quick as possible. So again, my name is Demetrius Wilson, um, class of 2018, which feels like forever ago. Currently based in New York. I also just finished my MFA program last June. So I'm a fresh MFA graduate. Um, what else did you want me to elaborate on?
Just, what are you doing now, your work now, and a little bit about your career.
Yeah, so currently right now, my only occupation is art full time. Been fortunate to work with numerous galleries and collectors and be able to kind of live off of my paintings, which is kind of a dream for a lot of folks. So I'm kind of proof that it is still possible in this day and age, no matter, even though it is super crazy right now in the market. Um, I'm an artist in New York City, so that's exciting. And yeah, I mean, my career is still relatively pretty young, but I have learned a lot, and yeah, hopefully I can share a few with you all.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I just wanted to make sure that people, that you'd introduced yourself. So going back to this question of skills that you've developed from your time at Holy Cross, I was wondering whether maybe we could bounce this question to Amy and just ask you a little bit about some skills that you feel like you've developed from your time at HC.
Yeah, I would say, and this actually shows the overlap of my experience with the arts and athletics, but I think presentation and showing up and performing and the confidence and polish that comes with that has really, really helped me get to where I am. Like Leslie said, relationships are so important, and my work is primarily word of mouth. And the way that I've gotten here is by relationships, speaking to people on an airplane or sharing my work on Instagram. And I like yesterday, I got a phone call from a woman who saw my work in a newspaper, and then she's like the wife of an old cousin. She didn't even know she was calling the right Amy, but that's how it happens. Like, yeah, put the work out there, do your best work, show up, make the connections, and repeat. And being an artist and having exhibitions and being an athlete and having to win games like that really has served me as a business owner and a creative business owner. So thank you, Christy and team and Leslie and everybody.
Thank you. No, that's really interesting to hear. I was wondering whether Demetrius, maybe you would like to speak to this question. Skills that you've developed at HC that, that have helped you in your work now, and, how do you develop those skills after you left Holy Cross also?
Sorry, it's like music. I'm trying to get away from it. But hold on one second. Um, Learned a lot at AC. Some skills that that kind of trickled over, and I would kind of recommend to everybody is I think Sarah mentioned writing. As much as we don't like it, it is a necessary skill that we really do need, especially as artists. Especially when you're first kind of getting your name out there. Um, because you're not well known, you kind of pretty much have to explain yourself to everybody, and that usually falls under like the category of writing. And then once you get to like a level where like you're a little bit more known, that's when like folks start doing your own like like artist name is based off you, that kind of makes things easier. So brush up on the writing skills. And I think just like a word device for me is like try to make writing as fun as you can. I think especially like being in school for so long, we kind of just fall under like this academic framework. And I think one of the beauties about being an artist is that it can transfer in so many aspects in your life, and that especially is true for writing. So try to make your writings as fun as possible, and that also just allows the reader to kind of really enjoy it. And they kind of want to tap more into say like who you are as a person and like what you kind of offer, like what you will offer. So writing is definitely one aspect that I would push. It doesn't have to be like crazy, but just like again, just try to make it fun. Another skill, get used to being. Yeah, I think a mantra for me, like when I first got to New York, was um, being comfortable with uncomfortability, and that just really allowed me to just dive into so many opportunities that I wouldn't normally put myself in front of. I mean, it is very scary at first, but once you do it a numerous amount of times, it really just becomes like second nature, and you just get so used to just being in odd situations. But these situations are key for growth. So really, just try to be uncomfortable, but yeah, just push yourself really. And I learned that at Holy Cross and spent it on, especially when I got to New York City. So that helps.
That's really interesting here. I think a lot of students need to hear about being uncomfortable, and it's, thank you for sharing that. Sometimes it doesn't feel very comfortable to put yourself out there for opportunities and other things. Leslie, I was wondering whether maybe you could speak a little bit to that question as well. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's cool to see all these themes. Writing couldn't echo that more. The amount of emails I write, but then maybe most importantly is the amount of contracts I write, who then get reviewed by clients, right? Who some of them have very fancy, intense jobs. A lot of them are attorneys. So picture an attorney, taking everything you've written and kind of redlining it literally and sending you edits back. So there is more focus on writing, and I've been able to tell the impact of my ability to write and organize my thoughts and present suggestions are received really well. And it's a skill that clients value, and I think could potentially like make or break getting a client. Um, the other thing I was going to say, oh, emails. I mean, so we're just a team of two, so it doesn't apply as much here, but I have worked in large organizations and medium-sized organizations, and if you can write a nicely organized, easy to read email, you win a lot of points, and it's not that tough. But as I was working my way up through all these different organizations, I was constantly shocked by how challenged people were by just communicating a thoughtful, clear email. Use bullet points, everyone. Just don't hesitate and don't write large paragraphs because no one's going to read them. And then it makes your life and everyone else's life harder. Yeah, I don't know if I learned this at Holy Cross. Christy would have to tell me, but like, I think there was something, and maybe I'm making this up reflecting so many years later, but I feel like there was a vibe throughout Holy Cross that really encouraged you, and maybe it's the Jesuits, to really take a second and reflect on like what you think you want to do in this world. And not that it has to be, saving babies or anything, but like our time is precious and your energy is precious. And um I just feel like I was encouraged to kind of really reflect on what I want to try to do, whether or not I'm successful, like how do I want to spend my time. And as I left Holy Cross and met all these different people and went to different schools and different jobs, I don't meet many people that kind of came away from college with that feeling. So maybe it was just me. Maybe it was But it's something I'm really grateful for that I think has had a pretty direct impact on my career.
Wow, thank you for sharing. So the next question that I have, I think, is one that a lot of students are going to have, which is, could you talk a little bit about mentors? Did you have mentors who helped you throughout your career? And how did you identify the mentor? And how have you activated and employed your mentor over your time developing your career? So maybe we can start with Demetrius this time.
Sure thing. I think everybody knows the importance of mentors. I mean, I made sure once I realized I wanted to have art as a career, I made sure to tap in with my professors while at Holy Cross and making sure that I kept in communication with them. And that also, it also got even easier once I got to my MFA program. Um, you also realize people tend to just gravitate towards you. And that also just comes in that also comes along with again putting yourself in situations that you would have normally put yourself in. You would be surprised to see who would be willing to help you. So mentor is the key, and I also kind of take on the role as a mentor time to time, even though I'm in the thick of it. I just feel like um, as an artist, you realize there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on within the industry, within the art world. It's actually it's so vast, but it's also very small because everybody knows everybody. But opportunities aren't as plentiful as they should be. But I just try to branch and connect with everybody that I kind of come in close proximity with. Some stick, some don't. But the most important part is really just kind of holding dear onto the ones that actually do have a liking to you, and actually like looking for nothing but the best for you. So I've been saying mentors, they come in all different sizes and professions, and they don't only have to be within art. I mean, I had mentors in like finance when I was doing like just calculus in high school. Um, so just like it really branches, and you never know what from. Sorry, it's loud. You'll never know like what you can kind of take from different folks in different fields. So branch out.
Yeah, that's very helpful advice. Don't only think that you need to reach out to people who are exactly in your field. Maybe Amy, maybe you could answer this question. Did you have mentors who helped you throughout your career? How did you identify the mentor? I think that's often something that is hard for students. How did you activate them and employ them?
Yeah, I mean, growing up and through my academic time, I think my mentors were my faculty, right? Like the people right on this call. They knew about art life more than I did, and they were able to guide and advise and help and create other connections beyond the ones that we made. The more that I grew and I've held on to those, but what I kind of consider my mentor now, and those people also fit that bill, are the people who are doing the same thing, the people who are in the trenches with me, right? Authentic, creative business owners, self starters, wearing many hats and really hustling. And I love being around those spirits. That's who I am. So I find that my community that I surround myself with are a lot of people who are in it like me.
Very interesting. I know, Sarah, that you mentioned already a little bit about your mentors in Japan. And I don't know, I was just wondering whether you could just talk briefly about, how you identified mentors and, how you use them in more specific terms.
Yeah, so in Japan, it was really serendipitous. I, found myself in this small, like, town of 13,000 people, which in Japan, that's really small. And I didn't really speak the language. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to do with myself here? I enjoy reading, but, that will only get you so far. So I joined every culture class in the town, like Ikebana, calligraphy, ceramics. And I had heard that the teacher had another American student. So a private student. So I wrote a note in English, and I was in the community ceramics class, as I said, and I had one of the women translate it for him, and I asked if I could study with him privately, and he answered me with the word maybe. And I was a little bit, taken aback, but that's actually often a typical answer in Japanese culture. So he said, "Why don't you come have dinner with my wife and my daughter, and we'll see." And then he that night told me that I could study with him, but that I had to take it really seriously, and that I have to study with him every day, and that that would be my main focus. So uh, yeah, that's how I identified him, was just by asking. um, and this similar with Vicente. I was trying to, have access to a gas kiln, and I was just kind of in the studio all the time. And then he noticed like the way I threw on the pottery wheel was a little different because of the Japanese training, and he wondered. And then he said, "Oh, I'm looking for an assistant. Would you be interested?" So I feel that both of them, like, I think the asking, and like what Demetrius was saying, like kind of putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, like maybe writing that note in the little book and having it translated wasn't the most comfortable thing for me to do. But I'm really grateful I wrote that note. And I'm really grateful he said maybe. So, yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Really, really cool to hear. Leslie, I was wondering whether you could answer this question for your own work
Yeah.
trajectory.
I think I feel like people put too much pressure like in school or in situations like this on like you gotta find a mentor because I feel like it's in my opinion it can make people feel like it's this box they have to check off. I'd encourage people to kind of lead with the work and lead with your own curiosity. I have found mentors, I would say they came naturally out of working very closely alongside someone, right? There's nothing like bringing two people together, especially if there's like an age gap or, I just started in architecture, you've been doing this for 10 years. There's nothing like deadlines and solving problems together to like naturally bring a relationship together. And then I find people interesting. So if I am having a good time, even if it's challenging working with someone, I find the mentorship relationship comes from just then moving beyond work and asking them about their life and about themselves. And before you know it, you learn more about how they got to where they came. And I've never like formally asked someone to be a mentor. I don't know if we've addressed that. Mine has always just been like, and I guess this is where a lot of themes is I guess you could call it putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And even if I haven't seen someone in 5 years, if I'm in town and I know they're around, like I I guess it just becomes a muscle and I don't think about it now. It was uncomfortable maybe, 15 years ago, but I just like reach out to people and I'm like, do you want to get a coffee? Like, and I don't even have an agenda. It's just like we work together. I admire you. We had a great time. And inevitably, not only am I asking them about themselves, but as a business owner, I'm probably asking for advice or trying to figure out like some lessons I can gain. So mine have come from work mostly. And like one of my proud ones was a design director I work with under Urban Outfitters, and she was a tough cookie and like really put you through it. And but by the time I left, like I would consider her and I had like a mentor relationship. Like it really took a 180. So I guess the reason I say that is they can come from all shapes. They can start, you can have one relationship with them in the beginning. Um, and like it can evolve into more of a mentorship. So, but I would just say make sure it's rooted in like a connection and curiosity, and keep in mind, like, how would you kind of want, I guess, to have that conversation? I'll stop talking, but I have had some encounters with people who are just like, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, we just met. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. So just make sure it's rooted in something. And then 9.9 out of 10 times, if that's there, people want to help people, and everyone wants to give advice, and everyone loves talking about themselves. So you're usually off to the races. So
Yeah, no, that's really, really valuable. Also hearing from the mentee's point of view, you want to lead with your work and not just randomly ask people. So I think now we are going to turn to just student questions. So anybody, so we are doing this in speaker view. So if you don't want to appear in the recording, you can just put the questions in the chat and I'll read them out. So yeah, I mean, we'd love to hear questions from students.
uh-oh.
Hey, Victor, are you trying to talk? We can't hear you, actually. Sometimes Zoom has issues with earbuds. It might be the earbuds.
I think you might be typing a question. Okay, so Victor says, I had a question for Leslie Mather. When you graduated from Holy Cross, was it difficult transitioning from the smaller architectural studies concentration into Cornell's architecture program?
Yes. Uh, um, I say that kind of laughing just because, unless it's changed, I kind of joke. Uh, I was a bit of an outlier at Cornell. They definitely accepted me because I was an outlier and because of my painting and drawing portfolio, plus because I basically pleaded with this wonderful gentleman who became my mentor, and we chat all the time still, to hire me at his architecture firm straight out of college but I didn't know how to use computer. I didn't know how to draw on a computer. That's not what I learned at Holy Cross, and I did not learn how to work in an office. I really brought nothing to that job except for determination and willingness to work long hours and cry in the bathroom and just kind of baptism by fire. And so that all of that kind of made its way into my portfolio, an application to grad schools, and I'm pretty sure that's why I was accepted, because they were like, okay, this is interesting. We'll give her a shot. But it was very challenging. Uh, I would say architecture school is uh, very challenging, and Cornell is probably one of the most challenging. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, and it was. Victor, I'm happy to talk about architecture school another time. We can do this for like hours. But yes, it was hard, but worth every second and every tear and every challenge.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question and a really interesting answer, because I think that's something that a lot of Holy Cross grads may be thinking about, coming from a smaller liberal arts kind of college and then, going to graduate school for studio art or, something more specific like architecture. We probably have time for maybe one more student question before we wrap up, maybe two. So if anybody has a question, that would be wonderful.
good time to start practicing being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, this
Otherwise,
is,
I'll start asking Leslie and Christy questions if no one asks us questions.
I'm perfectly
I
happy to take
know.
any direction you want. So,
I know I want to open up space for them, but you guys are missing out.
Come on, everybody.
Oh, got a lot of talented people on this call.
well,
One thing,
Any seniors who are like about to be launched?
I think there was one who was on for a little bit and who's left. There's a couple of junior majors.
Hi, I have a
Oh,
quick question. Sorry, Charlotte, we're on the same call.
hi, sir.
Hi. So I was wondering, I love art and I'm a studio art minor, but I'm going into more of a office job next year. And I was just wondering, how, how I can have art in my life and maybe as like a part-time or full-time thing in the future. And just if any of you guys started in more like traditional fields and then went a different path, what do you recommend? Because I love it so much and it's such a half and half part of my life here. So I just want to throw it out there.
Well, if you want a side hustle and you can draw interiors, give me a call. Um, that's a great question. I mean, I was in academia, but I feel like art was kind of like a side hustle for me, even though I took it very seriously, obviously. But and then it just kind of morphed into something else. So find a way to like keep doing it or keep your hand busy in a good way and be inspired because the office job is not your forever job. You know, that specific job, it's wild. Like I never thought I would be here in a million years. So just yeah, be creative and embrace what comes along the way.
Some of the Charlotte, some of the happiest people, I don't want to say happy, I don't, that's exaggerating, but you'd be surprised how many people out there in the world have like office normal jobs and like they just do it for the paycheck and the health insurance, and that's amazing and very valuable. And the predictability and the stability. And then on the side, they have this like very creative business or project that they work on. And like that's what they want to talk about actually. Like there's a lot of those people out there. And honestly, sometimes I'm like, why didn't I do that? So it's a very, it's more than valid. It's like just once you get out there and if you start, I hate to use the word networking, but like you will find your people who are also doing that. And there's a lot of people who will kind of gravitate towards that are doing that. So yeah.
Thank you both so much.
thank you. I can see there are a couple more questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up, but I'm sure that all of our panelists would be happy to answer questions, via email or other kind of communication, because these are great questions, but we're just running out of time a little bit.
So I'm gonna jump in here and close things out. So please join me in thanking, giving a virtual round of applause to all of our panelists for being here. Also, a big round of applause goes to Sophie for facilitating tonight. Great work, Sophie. Um, so just wanted to plug we have another creative careers in the arts event coming up a week from today at the same time 7:30 on Wednesday. You can find that link in Handshake. Finally, also a thank you to all the folks who helped plan this event tonight. Christy Rinklin, Rochelle Bodwin, and Lauren Zamita for their help as well. So I didn't want to forget that. Alums, people can find you on LinkedIn or email, or what's the best way for people to connect with you sort of offline? Amy, do you want to start?
I'm like answering Karen's question in the chat bot as we speak. So Karen, stay on for a second. I'm going to type to you. If people want to contact me, I'm going to put my email in the chat pod and even my phone number. Please feel free to text me or email me directly. I'm happy to connect with anybody and kind of discuss what their futures are, what they need, and how I got where I am.
Great. Leslie, how about you?
You have my email in here, and then, selfish, shameless plug. Feel free to follow us on Instagram.
Yeah,
Put in
that
there.
too.
Great. Awesome. Demetrius, how about you? Oh, your volume's kicking
I
out
don't.
again, Demetrius. Demetrius is having some trouble
Can
with
you
it.
hear me?
Uh, yeah, if you speak up, I think I can hear you. Oh. All right, so sounds like we're having some trouble with Demetrius's auto. Sarah, how about you?
Happy to answer any questions by email, and you can also DM me on Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks again. I'm sure Demetrius, is your audio working? You want to try one more time?
Can you hear me?
We got you.
um, I'm not really on LinkedIn, but email me. Please reach out if you have any other questions, and I know I could be of help. So yeah, please reach out.
Awesome. Thanks again to all the alums that were here and all the students that were here. We hope everybody has a great evening and found the event useful. If you have friends who weren't able to make this, this recording will be available on CCD On Demand, which is the Career Center's video content site. You can get there through Handshake. So everybody have a great evening.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you.
So nice to see you guys again.
I
It's
know,
amazing.
it's so fun
Good
to
to
see
see you
you.
guys.
I know. It's like a little
Maybe the
reunion.
I know, you could do one in person.
Yes.
Seriously, no, Leslie was like, I want to come next year.
I
So let's
do. Give
do
me
it.
a reason to come out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I would love to have one of these in person. We're going to see Demetrius in New York at the end of the month.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Can't wait.
yeah.
Cool.
So it's exciting. I love what you guys were saying about writing because right now I'm teaching the seminar again, and we just finished the first draft of artist statements. And of course, for some, it's like asking them to donate plasma.
Yep. Yeah. Good stuff.
And
Good
you know,
advice.
even though I say the same exact thing that you say, it's like I think it like if they heard this from you, it'd be so much better. So I'm gonna make them all listen to the recording.
Yeah, good.
I want to say thanks to everybody. I got to run. I have a 3-month-old puppy that really needs to go outside. But thank you
Oh,
all so much for tonight. I made Christy the host if you guys want to stick around and hang out. Great job, Sophie. That was awesome.
Sophie, that was so
Yes, thank
great.
you,
Awesome
Thank you,
Sophie.
Sophie.
job.
Yeah.
Sophie's like